All right, hello everybody. For this lesson, we're going to look at the arts and literature during the time period we've been looking at, which is a time of revolution and change. So we're going to look at how the arts and literature uh, may have changed as well. Okay, our objectives and standards: to summarize the key themes of Romanticism and to compare other forms of art and literature that evolved during this time to each other. And you can take a look at the standards as well. Okay, our vocabulary preview. These are the three movements we're going to look at in the lesson. So Romanticism, Realism, and Impressionism. So I want you to think about this. So we've been talking about how governments and society can go through revolutions, right? So can art and literature go through a revolution, so to speak? And I want you to think about, if you say yes, how can art and literature and even music go through a revolution or a change? So our essential question: what changes did art and literature go through during the time period? Okay, so art changes. So at the end of the 1700s, artists began to focus on nature and individuals. Remember, during the Enlightenment, what art was like and what music was focused on. So during this time period, they're going to turn from reason and emotion, like they did, like artists were focusing on during the Enlightenment, to more of a society and nature type perspective. Now, sometimes they included extra emotions, but mainly they focused on ideas and thoughts. So the elements of Romanticism. So, like I said, this new artistic movement is going to become known as Romanticism. Um, it's going to contain a couple of elements. It's going to focus on inner feelings and emotions. It's going to contain images of untamed nature, what nature really looks like, and sometimes even mysterious or horrifying events. We'll see some scary stories come about during this time period, and we'll talk about that later in the lesson. And it's also going to value the common people and individuals instead of focusing on politics and government so much, but more so focusing on the common people and the individual. So here's some pictures I've chosen to show you what we're talking about romanticism. In the top left corner, you can see obviously it looks like a picture of nature. You can see that it looks like you're basically walking outside into the woods, right? So you can see that this is what they were painting in terms of nature. It looks very romantic. It looks very elegant. And then at the bottom, we also have another picture. It looks like a man with a wagon, or a boy, I'm assuming. But the house there, and you can also see that that's also kind of nature. Oh, what what people were living in their daily lives. Okay, so literature and music. So literature also changed to adapt to Romanticism. They wrote about things like honor, beauty, nature. They're not just writing about politics and government. They're writing about things in the real world. Um, we also have Gothic horror stories become popular in this time. Stories like Frankenstein, if you know that story, are created during this time period. And we also have music express the ideas of Romanticism, focused on, instead of these elegant, beautiful tones that were from Enlightenment times. We still have some of that, but it focuses more on exciting, heroic themes that express nationalism and patriotism and things like that. So, Romanticism takes place in the early 1800s. So, by the middle of the 1800s, art is going to shift yet once again. With the impact of industry, and we're going to talk a little bit later this week about industrialization. But with the impact of industry coming about, artists began to focus on the reality of life during industrialization. Like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later on this week. But work was dirty and life was tough for people in industrialization. A lot of crowded cities, factories, dirty, just a very kind of chaotic life for people. So this becomes known as realism because you're focusing on the reality of life. So this is also when photographs begin to come around, and they captured images of people in their daily lives and the struggles they were facing. Um, and writers also wrote about the struggle between rich and poor. Remember, we'll talk about industrialization later on, like I said, but we'll talk about some of the struggles that the poor had working in these factories and how these rich factory owners and businessmen are able to make money off of the backs and the labor of the poor or the working class. As these writers focused on the struggles that the poor and the working class were going through, they're going to help bring about some labor reforms or changes that are going to make life better and work easier for these people as well. So we'll talk about that later on too. So here's some pictures of realism. You can see these are some, I believe they're ladies working in a field or farming. You can see it looks just like how they would look, right? Working in a field or on a farm. And then we also have, a couple of boys or men fishing on a boat. Again, it looks very realistic, shows you what life was like and what was going on. All right, the last movement is known as Impressionism, and this comes about around the middle of the 1800s, more close to the 1860s. But other artists are going to decide to focus on the positives of life instead of the negatives. Like in realism, a lot of times it's kind of a darker picture. It's kind of not depressing, but just shows more of a negative side of life of people working and struggling. But Impressionism tries to show people enjoying themselves in life. It showed workers enjoying themselves at parties or having a good time at work. Um, and music also focused on more of a happier note, more pleasant music, like making people feel welcomed or making them feel warm inside, such as people maybe might feel like they're at the ocean or at a party. So making people feel happy about their life. So again, this was known as Impressionism. And here's some pictures that you can see girls or ladies on a boat, the nice colors to the water, the house in the background. So them enjoying, a day on the lake or whatever. And then down here we have, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little dark, but you can see it looks like two people standing maybe on a dock or on a beach, and the night lights and the stars shining off the water. So again, showing the people enjoying themselves in everyday situations, not so much of a negative, working hard type images. Okay, so to wrap it up, so remember that Romanticism focused more on nature, making people feel, less so much on politics and government, more about, society and nature. And then we have Realism, who is going to look at the lives of people on an individual level and working hard and the struggles they are facing. And finally, Impressionism looked at the positives of life and people enjoying themselves during this time period. People, going for a walk or, going for a ride on the boat in the lake. People just enjoying themselves in general. Okay? So that's all I have for this lesson. So just make sure that you answer the questions, and I will talk to you later.